Hi, I'm Alex Hartley, and you're listening to How's That, the cricket podcast.
How's that? You messed about, I called you up. How's that?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of How's That, the cricket podcast with me, Ollie.
And me, Lily.
So another wonderful episode on the way. We do have Alex Hartley, England World Cup winner. She is our guest for the week, so that will be a good one to listen to, I'm sure. But we're going to have a little bit of a talk about cricket first. And I think what better to start than the WBBL?
Yeah, so you came down to Adelaide for a few games. You watched the Strikers and Sixers and the Renegades and the Heat. So do you want to tell us about those games, seeing as you travelled over to watch them?
Yeah, it was good. It was nice to see the Strikers get a win and see everybody happy. And, you know, I didn't think I'd see the Strikers win because the Strikers have a bit of a running joke that the Strikers and the Stars hadn't started so well. But, you know, it was great to come down to Adelaide. We obviously started at the Adelaide Oval for the Marsh Cup, and then we went across for the doubleheader. We had the Renegades and the Heat and the Strikers and the Sixers at KRO, which was wonderful. Obviously, the Heat got a win, the Strikers got a win, and it was overall a good day.
Yeah, so lovely to see my Strikers back on the board. I'm sure the people who I've convinced to be Strikers fans are quite happy, and also happy about the win over the Renegades as well, that we'll get to in a second. But yeah, then the Thunder and Scorchers, the Scorchers really shocked me because they didn't do too well against the Thunder. It was top of the ladder versus bottom of the ladder, and Thunder set 4 for 166 off their 20, and the Scorchers couldn't chase it down. They ended up on 9 for 141. So not too great for the Scorchers, but I'm sure they'll come back and bounce back. They're second of the ladder now because of the Heat's game last night. So yeah, then the day after that Scorchers and Thunder game, it was Thunder, Stars, Scorchers, Hurricanes. Both of those games got rained off, which was a bit disappointing. Tammy Beaumont was looking in nice form, and so was Amy Jones. So it's a shame they didn't get the win because of their good batting. But then moving on to Strikers and Renegades, that was at Karen Moulton Oval. We did quite well. Renegades all out for 101, and Strikers chased it down in 17 overs, 2 down. So a really nice performance by the Strikers, makes them look really good, which is something that, you know, I've missed seeing. But Amanda Wellington, 5 for 8. She's equaled her own best bowling figures and the competition's best bowling figures, which is just incredible.
Yeah, and obviously you took your B real with AJ Wellington. Maybe not as good as the Sophie Eccleston one from the other day, but you know, there's no competition here. But obviously, brilliant bowling from Wellington. Obviously, we spoke to her the other day when we were both there at KRO, and she's a wonderful person and a wonderful bowler as well. So to see her equal her own records and the competition's records was wonderful. So fair play to her. Yeah,
great person, great player, and it was really good to see her get those wickets again. Couldn't quite believe it when we saw her get her 5 for. We're like, this is really happening, which is absolutely mental. But Deandra Dottin was 55 not out, Katie Mack 12, Laura Wolfart 20, and Talia McGrath 9 not out. So really nice to see Deandra Dottin with some runs on the board. She's shown that she can hit hard, but she's just struggled to get those scores up on the board recently. So it's nice to see her solidify her spot in the top order there. Going on to Brisbane Heat and Sydney Thunder, which was last night as we're recording this. Brisbane Heat won by 3 runs due to the DLS, with Thunder setting 7 for 139. Brisbane ended up on 5 for 120. Good performance by the Brisbane Heat. Like usual, what can we say? Top of the ladder now. They've gone up because of it. Amelia Kerr, 22 off 15 with player of the match, and her bowling was 1 for 20 off her 4. Phoebe Litchfield got a nice little 50 in there, which was really good to see. And yeah, good bowling from Jess Jonathan with 2 for 20, Nicola Hancock with 2 for 25, Charlie Knott with 1 for 24, and like I mentioned, Amelia Kerr. So yeah, really nice from the Heat girls. And just to quickly go over the ladder. So we've got Brisbane Heat, top of the ladder, playing 5 matches, winning 4. Scorchers in its second, playing 5, winning 3. Sixers in at third, playing 4, winning 3. Hurricanes in fourth, playing 4, winning 2. Strikers in at fifth, playing 4, winning 2. Sydney Thunder, 6th, playing 6 matches, winning 1. And Renegades down at 7th, playing 4, winning 1. And the Melbourne Stars in 8th, playing 4, losing all of them. So yeah, the Strikers have jumped up into the ladder, into the qualifying ones so far, and your Stars are still down at the bottom.
Yeah, it's not been a good start to the season for the Stars, but a long way to go. Still a lot of cricket to be played. So I'm still hopeful. They do say it's the hope that kills you, but hopefully we can get a win or 2.
Yeah, so moving on to the T20 World Cup, we talked about the group stages, so now we'll move on to the Super 12s. So the first game of that was between New Zealand and Australia. New Zealand setting 200 for 3 and Australia not managing to chase that down whatsoever. They were all out for 111 off 17 overs. So New Zealand winning by 89 runs. A bit of a shocker for Australia, but as we saw last night, they managed to fight back a bit.
Yeah, that first game, I was just watching most of it on the plane back, just utterly shocked at how good New Zealand were more than anything else. Their fielding, and we'll talk about fielding a little bit later with England, because I was really impressed by theirs. But some of the catches that were taken by the New Zealand fielders were unbelievable. Glenn Phillips' one to remove Marcus Stoinis was genuinely one of the best catches I've ever seen. And so New Zealand deserved to win that one. You sort of know after a result like that, Australia are going to bounce back. And obviously they did last night, but or as we're recording this. But yeah, real statement from New Zealand.
Yeah, so do you want to talk us through the rest of the games?
Yeah, so we'll go next to England and Afghanistan in Perth. England setting 100, bowling out Afghanistan for 112. Sam Curran with 5 for 10. Not quite the 5 for 8 of AJ Wellington, but 5 for 10 still not bad. I think it was the second ever English male to take 5 wickets after Reece Topley. There was, Nasser Hussain was talking about it in commentary. I think Reece Topley was the first potentially, but 3.4 overs, 5 for 10 was wonderful. And then with the bat, Liam Livingstone top scoring for England with 29 not out. Pretty coasty win for England. Did it 5 down. I was hoping that, we'd be a little bit more secure than that, but, we were never really in danger of losing it. So England getting a win there to start off their Super 12s campaign. And then if you move on, Sri Lanka beating Ireland by 9 wickets with 5 overs left. So then we have perhaps the greatest T20 of all time with India beating Pakistan by 4 wickets. Pakistan really throwing this one away, but Virat Kohli, the amount of doubters that he's had, and for him to silence every single one of them in front of a solid MCG was genuinely wonderful. A wonderful T20, and that was perhaps the best knock of all time in that format. To take India home against their biggest rivals, you can just sit there and applaud. There's nothing else you can really do. Bangladesh beating the Netherlands and Zimbabwe, playing against South Africa with no result. That one was rained out. And if we do move on to the last game before we are now, Sri Lanka losing out to Australia by 7 wickets. A good win for Australian Marcus Stoinis, player of the match. 59 runs off 18 deliveries, if you don't mind. That's a pretty good strike rate. And allowed Aaron Finch to sort of piece the innings together. He made 31 of 42 deliveries. Slow strike rate, but when you're batting with someone like Marcus Stoinis, you don't really have to worry about it. And they share the wickets around with the ball at Australia, so a good win for them.
Yeah, nice to see Australia back on the board, I guess. Obviously, as I do live in Australia, I don't absolutely hate them. So if we go through the Super 12 ladder, in Group 1, New Zealand are first, England are second, Sri Lanka are third, Australia are fourth, Afghanistan are fifth, and Ireland are sixth. And then if we go through the second group, Bangladesh first, India second, South Africa third, Zimbabwe fourth, Pakistan fifth, and Netherlands sixth.
Yeah, and obviously England have got Ireland today. I'll be there. There's a double header at the MCG as we're recording this. Obviously the result will be out by the time this is released, but England, Ireland, and New Zealand, Afghanistan. Looking forward to being there. Hopefully the rain stays away. It's looking kind of so-so, but I'm hoping so, and then hopefully England get a win.
Yeah, so obviously we will keep everybody updated as that tournament progresses. But now to move on to our guest.
Absolutely. So we've got England World Cup winner Alex Hartley. Obviously, she took the 2 wickets in the final. It was a memorable day for English women's cricket. So she talked about that. She talks about her cricket upbringing with Lancs and her time in the WBBL with Hobart. It was a wonderful interview and it's here for you now.
Gone. That is a crushing blow for India. Tammy Beaumont takes a good catch. Alex Hartley is struck for England.
So, Alex, thank you for coming on How's That, the cricket podcast. Great to have you. Could you just let us know where you are at the moment and what you're getting up to?
It's a great question. I am in Hobart at the minute, here for the Men's T20 World Cup. So doing the pre-qualifiers before the Super 12s. I'm just going to see who qualifies for the next round of the World Cup.
On field, it's been good. But for you, on media duties, how's it been for you observing the tournament?
Yeah, it's been really good. There's been a few shocks, hasn't there, already in the tournament, which is always good for us in the media and for me commentating because it gives us stuff to talk about. So yeah, it's been good fun. It's gone well so far. The only thing that's really annoyed me about Australia this time round is how cold it is.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not
that
been the
might
warmest.
just be a Hobart thing, to be fair,
So
because
I was in Perth and it was freezing. I was in Canberra and it was freezing.
come to Adelaide, it's warm here.
Right, I've got 5 days in Adelaide soon, and it better be warm.
Oh, well, okay, it's been warm for the past couple of days, so let's hope it stays that way.
Well, I mean, obviously, I mean, it's sometimes, well, it's the south, isn't it? South is usually not very warm. Melbourne's always freezing, so you know, it is what it is. But beggars can't be choosers. It's Australia at the end of the day. It's miles better than England lifestyle wise. So
Well,
we
true.
take it and run. But you speak of Hobart. Of course, it's not your first time in Hobart. You spent time in Hobart playing for the Hurricanes a few years ago in the Big Bash. Is it nice to return? And are there any fond memories of Hobart from your time playing for the Hurricanes?
Yeah, it's lovely to be back. I love coming to Hobart. I think it's beautiful. The weather, obviously, mentioned it already. It's freezing. It's not nice. I've had to go buy myself a winter coat, but it's nice to, be back here. I've had some really fond memories. My head coach, Sal Briggs, gonna go out for dinner with her tomorrow night. So yeah, it's lovely to come back, and nothing really changes in Hobart. It's just a small little city.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, but it looks like a nice area. I've never been, but hopefully that changes soon enough. And obviously, we've talked about the WBBL and we've segued to it. The WBBL 08 has just started, in this week or so. Obviously, we've said that you've played in it, but do you still keep up to date with the competition? And if so, have you got any favourites to who you think are going to win it this year?
Yeah, I am a cricket badger. So if like people listen to my commentary and they're like, oh yeah, right, whatever. But honestly, I'll listen to anything and everything and watch everything and anything. I always follow the Canes because obviously I played for them. Always want them to do well. Always annoys me that they lose like the easiest games and stuff. I'm like, oh, come on, girls. But I think the Sydney Sixers, I hate to say it, I really don't like them. For some reason, I don't like them. I don't know what it is, but I don't like them. But they've got Sophie Eccleston, and any team that's got Sophie Eccleston's probably going to do pretty well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
there's-
probably the best bowler in the world, isn't she? Or up there. So
Yeah.
you can't go too far wrong.
Yeah, it's been an incredible tournament so far. And like you said, there's a few girls who have come over from England, like younger players like Alice Capsey and Bess Heath has also gone over as an international replacement. So yeah, that's a bit of an interesting one. Are you just doing World Cup this year?
Yeah, just World Cup. So unfortunately, not going to be around to commentate on the Wibble, but maybe next time.
That's disappointing. But I guess going back to the very beginning, how did you first get into cricket?
Great question. So none of my family play cricket, which is always a huge shock to, people around the world because quite often in female cricket, your brother plays or your dad plays, but I lived on an estate full of boys and they all played football, so I played football. And then I remember this one Friday night, they all went to the cricket club and I ran home and I was like, Mum, can I go to the cricket club with the lads? And she was like, no. She was like, come on, you do every sport under the sun. You're at school playing sport all the time. You literally do everything. I was like, come on. So we went up. So we went up on that Friday and she discovered the bar was open. So it was easy to convince her to go back every Friday after that.
No, that's fair enough. And then when you started playing and started getting into it, what was your pathway to progress to, I guess, a professional level?
So I mean, it took us such a long time to become a professional because, the only time you could be a professional when I was playing for England was to play for England. That's the only chance you could be contracted. So I literally played boys cricket growing up, played boys cricket at school, and then played for Lancashire women in age group stuff. Ended up getting in the England Academy at, I want to say 16, 17, being dropped at 18, and then not making my England debut till I was, I've got no idea. Let's just say 22. It might have been before then, until I was 22-ish. So then I got contracted. So it's so much easier for people or girls now to be professional because you can be contracted at domestic level. You can play in the 100, the KSLB before that. But for me, you could only become a professional when you got to the very top. So it took a while.
The good thing about women's cricket now is it's so much easier to become professional. And obviously, I think women's cricket at the moment, or the way I see it from a supporter's point of view, is it's the highest peak it's ever been because of the amount of opportunities there are. Do you sort of see that as well as you know, as a supporter, as a former player, as a broadcaster, that women's cricket's constantly evolving and it gets better by the day?
Yeah, literally year by year it gets so much better. You know, we in England we look at Australia and say, well, look how good they are, and they've been professional for so much longer than we have over in England. But we'll catch up one day. You know, we'll get there. In English cricket, it's just a matter of, you know, biding our time. We've only been professional a couple of years at domestic level, so you know, I mean, 4 years ago, the likes of Beth Heath coming over to play in the WBBL would just never happen because nobody would have ever seen her play. So it's like the only people that could come over and play in franchise crickets were the girls that played for England. So it is getting better. You know, we're playing in front of more and more people. I mean, in the 100 now, the average crowd's 10,000, which is bloody brilliant, isn't it? I mean, it's like what dreams are made of when you think about playing cricket.
Yeah, it certainly is. And obviously, talking about the 100, you've had your experience at two clubs with you've had the Originals, arguably. Well, we would all say the best team in the comp. But moving on to Wales to play for the Welsh Fire. What's it sort of been like for you? Obviously, it's a new competition. It's evolving for everybody. What does it feel like to be a pioneer of the competition as a player and as a fan?
Honestly, like when people say like, what's it like? It's really hard to describe, but it's the best tournament I've ever played in, purely for the fact with, you know, the men and the women are advertised equally. It's a day out at the cricket. It's not men's cricket and women's cricket. It's a day at the cricket. You get good bang for your buck, don't you? Because you pay 30 quid for the day and you go and watch cricket all day. But the standard of the competition is just getting better and better. The fireworks, the crowds. I mean, I hate to say it, but Cardiff had the worst crowds, which is really annoying because that was who I was playing for. But everywhere we went, you know, the crowds were amazing. And it's making us better cricketers. So it's an amazing competition on and off the field because, I mean, commentating on it, I get to sit back and watch and, you know, just the entertainment that it causes and creates, and the atmosphere is just brilliant. I mean, the fact Lily flew over to bloody watch is a start. I mean, it just shows how good it is.
Yeah, it's definitely something that obviously growing up with the WBBL since the beginning of the tournament, it's definitely something that I saw in the first year and went like, well, we haven't had a crowd like that ever at the Big Bash, which is surprising because, like you said, it's in its second year, the 100, and the Big Bash has been going since 2015. So, but there is things that the 100, I would say do better with it, obviously being double headers and it being in school holidays, not during school time. Do you think that there is maybe some things that the 100 learnt from seeing the WBBL and kind of implemented into the tournament itself?
I don't think so. I think COVID really helped the 100 because originally as females, we were meant to be playing on outgrounds, so they weren't supposed to be double headers. But because of COVID, we ended up doing the double headers. And then after the first year, I think the ECB realised, wow, this has been a success. We cannot stop that. Like, we have to carry on. So the double headers have carried on. So one good thing that came out of COVID, I guess, was the double headers in the 100, because as a Manchester original, the first year we were supposed to play at Sedbergh School. You're telling me we're going to get 9,000 people at Sedbergh School? I don't think so. So the fact that, you know, the double headers came about because of COVID was brilliant, and they can't step back on it now.
No, exactly. And then talking about that, the first ever 100 game was a female game, and you played in that against the Invincibles. So obviously being a part of that, what was that whole experience like for you?
Oh, honestly, like goosebump moment. It was so good. The fireworks went off and the game started. I was like, this is as close to international cricket, or as close to as I've felt winning the World Cup for a long time. And it was just madness, like absolute madness. I mean, I've never been prouder to lose a cricket game, because we were just soaking it all in, the atmosphere, you know, the thousands of people that were there watching. The ECB did it brilliantly. Yeah, it was incredible to be a part of.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And then also mentioning the crowds, like we said, the players here who went over wouldn't be used to things like that. And I'm sure, you know, obviously I wouldn't know how you feel yourself, but were the crowds a new thing for you to kind of play in front of? And if so, what was it like to have packed out crowds throughout the night?
Yeah, the first year it was definitely new. You know, we'd turn up and we'd be like, wonder how many people would turn up today. And then there'd be 9,000, 8,000, 12,000, 14,000, I think went to Lords on one of the games, which is just madness for a domestic game. And I guess what is shown to us as players is if it's advertised well, people are interested and they want to turn up and they want to watch. So it is something that we had to get used to. I mean, on the opening night, Laura Jackson was up bowling for Manchester Originals and she said, my knees are shaking. She got a wicket with her first ball. I said, how are you feeling now? She went, my knees are shaking even more because she was just so nervous with the crowd. But no, it's something you do get used to. And the more you turn up to these games, the more you get used to it. But yeah, it takes some getting used to.
Yeah, I was going to say with 100, one last one. Obviously, cricket traditionalists, I don't think they liked the 100. And they talked about thinking, oh, it's another one of these Mickey Mouse white ball competitions that's come about, and it was a bit of skepticism surrounding it. Do you think these last couple of seasons of the 100 have really, sort of shut them up as if to say, right, well, the 100 to stay, and you've just got to have it?
Yeah, are you allowed to swear on this podcast?
Go on. Yeah, go on. I was going to say,
like you is all that comes to my mind. Because honestly, it has done cricket so much good, and I'm talking about women's cricket here. It's put women's cricket on a different level. It's been fantastic, and without the 100, English women's cricket wouldn't be where it's at today. So cricket traditionalists, there is room for both, and open your eyes and come watch a 100 game, and I'm telling you now, you'll enjoy it.
I can back that as well from experience. Lots of fun. But one more on that. It's been quite a talking point as well about it being a men and women's tournament. Now, a lot of people have said it's obviously really beneficial for the women's game, like you said, but people have said that it's not as groundbreaking for the men because it's just not like, some people have said it should just be a women's tournament. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you make about that kind of point?
I think it hasn't been as groundbreaking for the men purely because they haven't had the big names come over. They haven't had, the Elise Perrys, the Meg Lannings. They haven't had that of the men's world come over. If you're going to pay people to play cricket and you want to bring in entertainment, if you sign Chris Gale, he's going to make people come and watch. He might not get you the runs that Joe Clark, when he's on, will get you, but he'll bring in the crowd. And it's that fine line, isn't it, of trying to bring these superstars over, but also wanting to develop your own. I think the quality of men's overseas that have come over has been good enough. I think the entertainment's been good. I just think we're comparing men's and women's cricket again when we shouldn't be. So why does it always come down to, well, it's been great for the women, but the men it's not? It's just been a good competition. There hasn't been as many close games in the men's tournament, but maybe the teams haven't been well balanced, something that can get looked at. Teams need to sign better players. Poor old Welsh Fire, we had a shocker, but it happens. I just hope that we've not become the team that nobody wants to play for.
Well, let's hope not. But I mean, it has been a bit of a tough run for the Welsh Fire, like you said, in the men and women's tournament. Did that necessarily bother you? Because obviously I know losing isn't great, but because it was such a fun tournament to be a part of, did that kind of just be pushed aside by how fun the tournament was?
Yeah, losing bothers anyone, any sports person, nobody wants to lose. You turn up, you want to win. It got quite funny towards the end, really, because we'd turn up, we'd lose, then the men would lose. We'd lose, then the men would lose, and we'd be like, what is going on? How do we get a win? And then we got a win, and we were like, right, now you need to win, and they lost. So, I mean, 1 from 14 is all we kept saying, and we got the ones. Yeah. But no, all jokes aside, as a women's team, we were so close in a few games. It's just those fine margins when it comes down to T20 cricket. I talk about it all the time. You learn to win, you learn to lose, and we just got in losing habits, and we weren't very good.
I mean, like I said, it would have been nice to see a couple more on the board, but like I said, can't win them all next year. Yeah. So
from there.
Well, I'm obviously listening to your podcast. I'm sure a lot of people would know you weren't even sure that you were going to play it this year. So do you have any plans for next season? Do you plan on sticking to it?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not retiring because I love the 100 that much. So I'm going to do another year. Don't know where I'll play because the 100's weird. You get retained or you don't get retained. Are you going to a draft or whatever it is that they do? I don't even know. So I don't know where I'll play if anyone will want me, but I'm wanting to play another year and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you can get a nice shirt collection going though if you don't get retained. You can get all the
I
different
could
colours.
be, yeah. I could do. Is there 18 plus 6 is 8? I could do 8 more years and play for a different team each year.
Yeah, and also it might have been said before, but did you get like loads of hula hoops or not?
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We got boxes and boxes of the stuff. It was so good. I remember one day after training, I emptied my bag and I had 13 packets of hula hoops in there. And I was like, Alex, you do not need that many. Obviously, I got through them all.
No, that's fair. I think everybody would. Hula hoops are really nice, and obviously we don't get them over here, so I took loads home with me.
Yeah.
So now going on to your England stuff. Like you said, you played in the England under 17s team, progressed through that, and then made your England debut in 2016 against Pakistan. Played in the ODI and then a T20. It didn't take a wicket in the ODI, but you took 2 in the T20. So do you have any memories from that series against Pakistan?
Yeah, it's quite sad, really. Most people play for England and it's the best day of their lives. They're like, I've worked for this for my whole life. Mine was one of the worst days of my life, my England debut. I hated every single second of it, like literally hated it because I couldn't bowl straight. Like I was so nervous and so overwhelmed by the occasion of making my debut, which, I'd wanted to do for years and years. I just couldn't play cricket on the day. And the first ball that ever came to me in international cricket, I let it through my legs for 4. So if I should have known my day was going to go bad to worse, cried when I'd finished playing. I went over to my mum, gave her a hug, and I was like, I'm never going to play again. And my mum said, Alex, you've always wanted to play for England. You've got that cap now. No one can take it away from you. Doesn't matter what happens from here. And I was like, you're right. And then from then on in, like, my mindset just changed. And then played that T20 and didn't bowl that well, actually. I don't think I bowled my 4 overs, which as a bowling spinner who bats at 11, never ideal. If you don't bowl your allocated overs, means you've not done very well. So those first 2 games for England were shambles on my behalf.
Yeah, and obviously it panned out pretty well from there on. And you said the support from your family was nice and reassuring. But what was the support from the England coaching staff like? They obviously backed you in because you played many more times for England. But what was that like initially when you'd had 2 shockers by your own admission?
Well, we finished that series and went straight into the KSL. So I went back to Lancs and had a really good KSL and I went back to Surrey. It was when I was at Surrey Stars and took a shed loads of wickets. Like it was just one of them years where everything goes your way. And I was like, oh, right, bloody hell, I can bowl again. And then we got picked for the West Indies, played a warm-up game, bowled 10 overs, went for like 78. And I was crying. I was like, maybe I'm just not good enough to play for England. And Mark Robinson pulled me aside. I was actually on the field at fine leg. And he was like, where were you a year ago today? And I was like, working in the bakery, making people pies and sandwiches and shit like that. And he said, where are you now? I was like, in the West Indies representing England. He said, right, where would you rather be? And I was like, here. And he's like, right, well, we back you. You're going to play the first game. Get your head around it. And I was like, oh, right. How the hell am I going to play? Like, I've just bowled 10 overs for 70 and I was bowling double bounces and beamers. I was like, but you're going to pick me for an international? Are you mad? But I ended up playing and it went really well. And then from then on in, for the first 2 years of my career, I had a belter.
Yeah, and obviously the crowning moment in anybody's, I think, career would be winning a World Cup, and you're part of a select group of people that have done it. 50 over World Cup at Lords. It's just the perfect moment. Obviously, you had a good game as well playing against India. Could you tell us what was going through your mind before the game, sort of stuff behind the scenes that nobody saw?
Yeah, so got a text from the psychologist saying, I'm catching up with everybody. Do you want to catch up? I was like, not really, Mike, because you've not caught up with me once throughout this tournament and it's just another cricket game. And he was like, oh, right. Are you feeling nervous? I was like, well, yeah, obviously, but you're making this worse because we're having a psychology meeting the day before a World Cup final when we haven't had a psychology meeting in any other game. So I went for coffee with him and we didn't talk about cricket. We just talked about life and catching up. And I woke up on the day and holy hell, I was nervous. I was sick because I was so nervous. There's a picture of me warming up with a TheraBand and my face is just blank. And like, I remember Heather Knight coming up to me and she was like, mate, you'll be fine. Just do you. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to look at all the empty seats in the crowd. She went, slight problem, it's sold out. There won't be any empty seats in the crowd. I was like, oh God. Okay. But once I got the ball in my hand, I was absolutely fine. And once, you know, I'd fielded a ball and the England girls were brilliant. I was always a really nervous player. And I fielded fine leg to fine leg. And they would always make sure they gave me the ball early. Even if it didn't come to me in the field, as we were crossing over between overs, they'd throw me the ball. And as soon as that happened, I felt so much more comfortable. And I remember that happening on the day and I was like, and breathe, she's back. But yeah, I mean, it was an incredible day.
It's a weird feeling how your mind just switches when you've got a job to do. I was talking about this the other day. It's like when you've got something to do, your mind just switches and changes. You feel invincible. Like it must be an awesome feeling, especially as a cricketer in that environment when when your teammates are helping you out, when you're getting the ball in your hand, when you're taking wickets, your mind just switches from being this nervous, Alex Hartley to being this unstoppable England cricketer.
Yeah, I mean, it is weird. The mind's an incredible thing, isn't it? I think, just the way the brain works. But the fact that all my teammates were around me that day just meant so much because I could have quite easily have had the day that I had on my England debut where I let the nerves take over. But, I'd learned to control them. They'd learned that, I was a nervous player. So, yeah, what a day.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I know that was the one game that a lot of young girls watched and went, wow, like, I want to do that and I want to be out there. So for you to be in that position, winning that World Cup in front of so many young cricketers, how did that make you feel knowing that you could possibly play such a pivotal role in young cricketers' dreams, really?
To be honest, never really thought about it. That I was that young cricketer once that wanted to play for England, and I guess our job as players is to inspire the next generation. I mean, the generation before me inspired to play, and now when there's kids at cricket grounds and they want to talk about cricket or they want to meet you, like, always give them the time of day because you can change their perspective on cricket within an instant. You ignore a young girl at a ground or you're just in a rush. They might say to their parents, I never want to go back to cricket. Like Alex Hartley didn't even stop to say hello. So after the World Cup final, I was last to finish the lap of honour because I made sure that I stopped and tried to speak to as many people as possible, because I know that I've been that person before. I was a dressing room attendant as a little kid for England women, and it was like the best day ever. So I wanted to make sure that, there's a young girl there, I'll go and speak to her. I remember one young girl was like, can I put your medal on? I was like, yeah, of course, here you go. And I was like, shit, I hope she doesn't steal it. But yeah, our job is to inspire the next generation. And I guess we were really lucky in the fact that we won that World Cup and were able to do that.
And just to check, you've still got that medal?
Yes. It's in a frame with my shirt in my house.
Yeah, well, that's good that you've still got it in possession of it, and that no one stole it from you. Must be pretty. Do you think it's a cool feeling, like, obviously looking up at that medal, or looking up at a cap, and just saying, "I did that"? Is it one of those things that you just like sort of reflect and go, I've got a medal. Not many people have a medal. Not many people have a cap. It's just like, it was pretty special.
Yeah, it is now. Now I look back. Now I know that my England career is over, and I probably will never play again. It's one of the greatest achievements of my life. But for a time when I'd lost my England contract, I couldn't even look at it. I had to put a bed sheet over it because I was like, that's really embarrassing because that's how good I used to be. And now I'm nobody. And it took me a while to sort of get over that and get over like the heartbreak of losing that England job and not being good enough anymore. And now it's like literally you walk in my house, it's like bang, it's right there. And I'm like, yeah, that was me. I'm like, I did that. So yeah, it's I'm incredibly proud of everything I've achieved because I think back to those days at school where I was playing cricket with the boys. I never thought that I would end up doing what I'm doing now or have achieved what I have, so yeah, incredibly proud.
Yeah, and just on losing the contract, it must have been a pretty horrible moment in in your career. Gone through all the positive things, but do you remember where you were when you found out that you weren't going to be retained and what the emotions were?
Yeah, I was in Didsbury in a shop called Another Heart to Feed, which is my favourite coffee shop. So why I went there, I'll never know. Sat on the table, first one on the right, got a coffee with Jonathan Finch, and small talk had started. Hi, how are you? I was like, get on with it. Get on with it. He said, do you want to go for a walk? It's not good news. And I was like, yeah. So we walked out the coffee shop. We went left out the coffee shop. We walked down the road about 100 meters. He told me that I'd lost my contract. We walked back up. We walked back down. We walked back up. We walked back down. I got in the car. I rang my dad, and then I rang Crossy, and they both came around to my house. And we went out for lunch. Me, Crossy, my dad, Crossy's mum. And then we went to the gym because that is what I knew. And that's all I knew what to do. I was like, what, how do I get away? How do I pretend this is not real? So me and Crossy went to the gym, which is really weird. And then I probably got incredibly drunk somewhere. But I was gutted, like absolutely gutted. It's like, I knew that I was going to lose it, but a tiny bit of me thought maybe they'll give me another year because I've just had a really good series. So maybe they'll give me another year. But no, it wasn't meant to be.
And obviously you mentioned there about Crossy going over to be there for you and obviously being your best friend. How was it knowing that she was going to carry on playing?
Oh, absolutely fine. Like,
Okay.
love that girl to bits. You know, I will forever be grateful for what she got me through because I was going through the toughest time in my life and she'd get me out of bed. You know, she'd make sure I was all right. She'd ring me 3 or 4 times a day. Yeah, the only thing that is affected now is I don't see her every day when I would love to see her every day. That's what we were used to, you know, journeys down to Loughborough, train together, come home together, spend the weekends together. Now I'll see her once every 3 or 4 weeks because we're both so busy. So that's the only thing I regret is I don't see my best mate as much. But God, no, like I'm so happy that she's still playing for England. Like, good on her. Like, play as long as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you've got your own podcast. Like, obviously, like me and Lily have got ours, and No Balls will give it a plug, even though we probably don't need to, given how that everybody listens to it. Like, it's everywhere. But since you're now on the podcast, we've now had both of the No Balls co-hosts on the pod. So we had Kate earlier on, and now you're here. So that's a little milestone for us. But what made you want to start a podcast? Was it the banter that you had with Crossy and you just wanted to let more people into that?
No, like honestly, someone tweeted us saying, you two are funny, you should have your own podcast. And we ignored it for a while. We both listened to Shag Married Annoyed by Chris and Rosie Ramsey. And I've never told anyone this, but we thought we were funnier than them too. They're both comedians. And I lost my England contract that I had nothing to do. And it was like let's give Alex something to do. And I was like, yeah, we could easily do this. And that was literally it. We started it because I had nothing to do. We thought we were funny. That was it.
That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. And obviously, there's many aims to a podcast. And I think one of the things that we try to do on here is try to make more people aware of women's cricket. Do you think that's something that you've done on No Ball with Crossy? And if so, is that something that you're proud of, raising awareness for women's cricket?
I think so. I think the main thing of our podcast is just to be normal people, to show that, professional athletes are normal people. Me and Crossy have those ups and downs every single day. We are normal people. We'll eat pizza, we'll go out, we'll have a drink with our friends, but we'll go to the gym, we'll work hard. I guess we have introduced more people to women's cricket because we've signed with the BBC, and naturally more and more people will listen because we are with the BBC. It goes out to a wider audience. But the podcast is something that blows my mind. People don't know me for my cricket anymore. They know me for the podcast, which is nuts. I'm like, I do still play cricket, like, I'm still here playing. And they're like, oh my God, it's you from the podcast. I'm like, keep listening. But if you want to watch me play cricket, I'm still playing. But no, it's something that, we are both really proud of because we've helped a lot of people through tough times. And I guess we never thought that we were doing that. But we have been. So it's amazing.
That's absolutely wonderful.
Now, also moving on from the podcast to commentary, how did you get into commentary and what made you go, oh, I could do this?
Fell into it, like honestly fell into it. I was watching a game at Old Trafford, or I think we'd played and the men were playing after or something. I was around watching, I can't really remember, but one of the commentators couldn't work that day. So, something had gone on, they had to go home. And Henry Moran said, do you fancy it? I was like, yeah, all right. So that was my first ever game. Joss Butler hit this massive six, and I just didn't say anything. I was just like, whoa. And Henry was like, Alex, you need to speak. I was like, oh yeah, of course, I'm on the radio. And then I was never really allowed to do it when I was playing for England. Every time I wasn't in a squad, England wouldn't let me commentate, which I don't get, but that's one of those things. And then the 2020 World Cup out in Australia, the T21, BBC asked if I wanted to go because Ebony Rainford Brent couldn't do it. And I've done it ever since, fell in love with it. So I basically fell into it and fell in love with it.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Do you think that stuff you've done on the podcast or commentary has kind of helped each one crossing over? Whether it's talking on the radio and then doing that stuff on the podcast or vice versa?
The podcast has 100% helped the radio. I don't get nervous. Do not get nervous in the slightest, because I just think, well, I've spoken to 60,000 people earlier when I did the podcast. I'm speaking to another few thousand now. I'm on the radio. Nothing, and I think it's also helped me interview people, listen to people, because obviously when we're interviewing people on the podcast, you've got to listen, and you've got to adapt your questions to what they say, and they might answer a question that you've not asked, but you've got it later written down. So yeah, both have helped tremendously. But the weird one is, I think commentating's helped my cricket. It's helped me play, because I see things in a different way now, and I see things in a, I'll be playing and I'll be thinking about commentary and what I would be telling myself to do. And my cricket's got better and better, which is so weird.
It actually makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Because obviously a different part of your brain's working. So yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting to have that insight though. But moving on back to playing, do you have a cricket highlight that's not the World Cup final? And if so, what is it? So I'm assuming World Cup highlight would be number one. The World Cup final would be number one.
Number one, I've got a couple, right? I've got one that's another international highlight. Getting Susie Bates out at Derby during the World Cup. She hit me for 2 fours. It might have even been 3 fours. And then I got her out and I was like, oh, what a relief. She was on for a big one. Got her stumped by Sarah Taylor. A funny highlight was playing New Zealand once, and I went up for a caught and bowled and it hit me on the head. I didn't get a hand on it. But a personal highlight was I got 7 for in a men's game. I was playing men's cricket at Ribblesdale and got 7 for. And after the game, all the lads were like, you didn't bowl well. And I was like, what? And they're like, you didn't bowl well. This is the opposite team. That you just found underneath the square there's a drain, and you kept hitting the drain, which is why it was spinning. And I was like, oh my God, you are pathetic.
Bloody Ribby.
Yeah, something that I've never forgotten, and it's always been a personal highlight, because I had a good day out and I just got all your team out. You're all men, you're all boys, and you just wouldn't accept it.
Yeah.
Showed them up. Absolutely showed them up. Love it. That's a brilliant one. I've never heard that from you, but that's class. But on to just life in general now. Obviously, you said that you probably consider that your England career is over, but you want to go on with 100. What is next for you, both in and out of cricket? And do you have anything you're sort of looking forward to or aspiring to do?
That's a good question. I've got a really good winter when it comes down to work and commentary stuff. Probably can't say what it is, but you probably work it out. I've got a brilliant winter. I'm away most of the winter, which stops me then training, so stops me doing pre-season. But I didn't do pre-season last year, and I had a pretty good year. So commentary-wise, for me, it's just carry on. It's my job now. It's my full-time career. And cricket, I play because I love it and I enjoy it. So now it's a case of just play as long as I can and as long as I'm enjoying it. And as soon as I stop, I'll stop playing.
Brilliant. And like we said, we'd love to see you out there for another year playing, at least. That's what at least. We'd like to see all the shirts, all the 100 shirts.
I'll give you 12 months. And then we'll go for. I'll do the podcast again in another year, and we'll see.
Okay, sounds good. But then our last little bit that we like to do, we've got some quick fire questions. Some cricket related, some not cricket related. So the first one is: if you were stuck on an island, what person would you take with you, and what 2 things would you take?
Oh, I'm gonna say Chris Tremlett, and if you listen to No Balls, you'll get it, and if you don't, you won't get it. But he's a very big man, very handsome man. I reckon he'd be good on a desert island. my phone so I can ring someone to get me off. And oh my God, what else do I need on a desert island? A towel to sit on, maybe?
Fair.
I can't believe I'm stuck on a desert island with Chris Tremler and I've got a beach towel to sit on. I messed that.
Anyway, moving on. Okay, hypothetical. You're needing to win a game. You're in the last over. Would you rather hit 3 sixes to win a game or take a hat trick to win a game?
Oh my, easily hit 3 sixes. Oh my God. I've never hit a 6 in professional cricket. That would be class. I mean, I've barely hit a 2.
No, that's fair. I mean, I think all of the bowlers say sixes. That's usually what happens because it's like the chances it's not going to happen often.
Alex Hartley, she's got an average of 2, but she hits 3 sixes to win a game. Come on then.
That would be brilliant. Now, Lords or Old Trafford?
Old Trafford.
Yes,
Yeah,
100%. Yes.
I'm a massive fan of Lords.
Okay. I just like the padded seats. That was pretty cool when I went.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, McCoy's or hula hoops?
Hula hoops, don't like McCoy's.
Now, pineapple on a pizza, yes or no?
Yes, but only recently have I started having it. I was, after a night out, got a ham and pineapple pizza, whatever it's called, Hawaiian. And I was like, that's pretty good. And then like 2 days later, 3 days later, I was like, I'm going to try it sober.
Yeah.
Why do people say it shouldn't be a thing? It's class.
Yeah, it's got the nice balance of like the sweet with like the savory. I think it's really nice. Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And now, orange juice or apple juice?
Orange juice.
Yeah. Got a nod of approval from everyone here. Now, your favorite cuisine?
Is that like a Italian or a, what else do you get? Burger and chips.
Yeah. I mean, could go for American, like just big with
dirty
oversized.
food. Yeah.
Now, if you were on a game show and you needed to phone a friend to win, I don't know what it is, it'd be £1 million for you. We're used to saying dollars, but yeah, £1 million. Who would you call and why?
Oh, goodness. Depends on the question, doesn't it? So your question,
General knowledge kind of questions they usually are, which like random facts.
I'm going to either ring my dad, he probably wouldn't answer. And then if he doesn't answer, I'm going to ring my brother.
Okay.
Because they're really clever. Crossy's not, my mum's not. I don't know. If I got to the £1 million question on who wants to be a millionaire, I'm cheating. Because I wouldn't even get it before.
But yeah, good answer. And then obviously, now this one has been mentioned before. You've answered this question before, but this is our How's That question that was created right at the beginning of the year. But for those who haven't heard you answer it, we'll ask it anyway. Is porridge a cereal? Yes or no?
I can't remember what I said. No.
Yeah, I'd say that's right. But
what did I say last time?
I think you went for yes because Crossy said no, and then she was like, she said something like, "We're not well educated in this area to be arguing this." So
I probably just said the opposite for podcast purposes.
Probably, but no, I agree. But yeah, no, you did well. I think me and Ollie can back most of those, I'd say. But yeah, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciated it. And yeah, good luck with all of it. We'll try and tune in as best as we can. Yeah, thank you again. It's wonderful chatting to you.
Lovely to see you both.
Gone. That is a crushing blow for India. Tammy Beaumont takes a good catch. Alex Hartley is struck for England.
So that was our interview with Alex Hartley. Really hope you enjoyed listening. One thing that I can't get out of my brain that she said in that interview is the fact that she called it the Wibble. And I love that. And I've told everybody that. And I've just started calling it the Wibble. And that's really bad.
It needs to catch on, doesn't it? It needs to catch on. Like it's amazing. Yeah. It's like sometimes you like abbreviate things, sometimes you spell out. It's like the Saka, obviously you don't spell it out, you don't call it the SACA. So maybe the Wibble needs to be the same thing. Like you're right, that was awesome.
Well, the WBBL is a mouthful. And whenever we say it in interviews, like I've done it, you've done it, we've both like stumbled over the amount of B's and letters in that sentence. So
we go the Wibble and Bibble now.
We'll see. I don't know how confident I would be saying it in an interview, but maybe in our before and after chat we can call it the Wibble. But yeah, I really love talking to Alex. It's always a pleasure when we get to speak to her. She's really nice, really funny. Told us some really nice stories there. And yeah, it was just really good to hear about her cricket story. As she's such a successful player and such a well-known player, it's absolute honour to have her on the podcast.
Yeah, I can only second that. You know, a wonderful interviewee, a wonderful person, and you really can't go wrong with Alex. It's a nice, little milestone for us that we've had both the No Balls co-hosts in Alex Hartley and Kate Cross on the pod. So yeah, it was absolutely wonderful to speak to her on so many reasons.
Yeah, it was. So hopefully we can see her again sometime in the future. She said she's not coming down for the Wibble, which is sad, but she'll be here in Adelaide, so maybe I'll see her for the World Cup. But yeah, that is the episode for this week. Next week, we will be back with another guest. But in the meantime, you can follow us on social media, Instagram or Twitter at How's That TCP. And if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoy our podcast, you can rate us on Spotify right at the top of the page, which would be greatly appreciated. Or you can send us an email at howsthatthecricketpodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, that is all from me this week.
Likewise, come on, England.